And if ever there was a character that we want now, it is St. Evelyn to be here. And the thing I think about the college is that ever since we had him starting the college off almost 750 years ago, the college has maintained that character.
The concerns I have about crypto geopolitically is certainly it does bring liquidity in the way that you described to areas that just can't get enough physical US dollars. At the same time, and this is my own view, not everyone agree with me, US hegemony depends on us being able to print unlimited amounts of US dollars without becoming a banana republic. We can do that because the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency because you have the most powerful military in the world, and any country that tries to back away from the US dollar as the reserve currency no longer has our US military stabilizing its country or its region. Exhibit A, Gaddafi. The moment he shifted from dollars to euros, well, he wasn't in charge of Libya anymore. Crypto, it seems to me, could provide an alternative to the US dollar where you could have blocks of countries, Russia, China, etc., deciding we're just going to trade oil with crypto, so we never touch US dollars. And if they succeed in that, what that means is that money never flows through the US banking system, which means our courts don't exert jurisdiction over those transactions. It means SWIFT no longer applies. And if that portends the end of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, so too the whole chain of reasoning, which ensures our continued hegemony. What's your view on that, Jim?
It's certainly possible. I mean, again, I'm a little skeptical, right? Countries, I think MacKenzie's dead right that, countries with highly unstable currencies, certainly consumers in those countries would love to have, by the way, 20 years ago, they loved to have dollars in their mattress. This is not a new concept. Now, those countries are likely to resist having their monetary policy and their currency taken away, and that's a whole other thing. But, look, at the end of the day, money is just trust. That's all it is.
But the value add for Bitcoin. So I was talking about stable coins a minute ago. Now with Bitcoin, you're talking about a decentralized currency. And yes, while highly volatile, it is something that exists outside the scope of governments. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin that are issued. It's got a built-in mechanism built into its code that is deflationary. And so what people see as the value add here is that governments can't just print more money. There is no central intermediary. And suddenly you've got the argument by the industries, and suddenly you've got a currency that can compete with the dominance of the US dollar. And, if Russia buys up enough of it, then perhaps they, have they have a stake in the game in terms of competing with the US dollar, because that's not going to happen for Ripple.
Right. And so the tension really isn't between, do we trust the US dollar more than we trust a Bitcoin? It really is, how much do we not want to be regulated by the US and not subject to US control? Mm-hmm. I think that's really the policy choice that people are going to have to contend with. I sent an email to my partners in New York this afternoon saying, hey, by the way, I'm doing this thing. And one of the topics is US-China relations. What do you guys think? One of my partners re-emailed me back, all caps, doomed. And so, what do you think?
Yeah. No, you're the expert. I'm the journalist. I usually ask the questions, and I have to go this back at you. You're so deeply entrenched in this narrative. I think that people in this room would really value your opinion.
Well, thank you. So, I think, I'll tell you my opinion. In the response I had to my partner, I said, we are joined at the hip, notwithstanding that you just lost your last jury trial representing a Chinese client. And so, I'm just sort of pointing out she had certain triggers, shall we say, with this issue. But while we clearly have competing national interests, we have very different worldviews of human rights, of governments. We are literally joined at the hip because of global supply chains. Our attempts in the last few years to decouple from China has not actually succeeded. All that has done is extend supply chains, making things more expensive. So that thing that you used to get was said made in China, which now says made in Mexico, well, Mexico got its parts from China. And so we just added a step and added cost. And so I think it is a grave concern. We need to figure out a way to get along and not destroy each other. But I think it is naive to think that we could completely decouple from each other.
And if anything, I mean, Donald Trump just this weekend in his Meet the Press interview was, talking about his very strong ties with President Xi. It's something that he repeatedly returns to. He pretty much stays away from the Taiwan narrative. It seems like he's trying to play up the fact that he has a very strong relationship with the Chinese president.
Having trust in the independence of our law enforcement agencies, of our judiciary. Our constitutional structure is based on a deep skepticism of human nature. That's why we have checks and balances. If we then appoint leaders of these institutions, which are meant to be independent, which undermine confidence in these institutions and their competence and their independence, that fundamentally undermines confidence in U.S. democracy. And that could bode for not as happy a future.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's my chief criticism right now. It's fashionable on my side of the aisle to just light yourself on fire over Donald Trump. But I think that the really scary stuff, setting aside your life in the next 3 months if you're an undocumented alien, that's going to be very scary. The really scary stuff is that Trump can't accept that the Department of Justice and the FBI should be utterly independent and that they don't really work for him. They work for the Constitution. And as I said, again, we shouldn't catastrophize. I don't think Adam Schiff is going to be brought up on treason charges at all, but I do, it's going to get uncomfortable because he'll talk about prosecuting members of Congress or members of the press who say something on Morning Joe that he doesn't like.
It's something I think about a lot. Elon is no big fan of the press either, and he has a lot of influence now going into this. He was joking. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this, but Comcast is spinning off its cable news properties. So CNBC is a part of that. So is MSNBC. And Elon Musk joking on X that he would buy MSNBC and replace Rachel Maddow with Joe Rogan. I think Warner Brothers announcing today that it's doing a similar structure where it's at least within the confines of the company, spinning off its cable properties into different segments that would segment off CNN. This is an industry that doesn't get better from here; it gets worse. People are cord cutting, and it's fundamentally changing the media landscape. It will not exist in the same form in a couple of years from now. Certainly not in a decade from now. And so, I have certain ideas about where it's headed, but with respect to the incoming president's views on journalism, he certainly had strong statements the last time around, and we'll see how this plays out now.
Well, I know a little bit of the difficulty that journalists face because during the BLM protests, I actually represented pro bono Linda Tirado, a journalist who was shot and blinded by the Minneapolis police while covering the protests. And actually the media played a really important role in achieving the right result in the end. We sued, but I was like, look, this process is going to take way too long. We're going to find a quicker way to solve this. So I got her to go to the camera. And I said, I'm going to ask you to do something really, really unkind. Look at the last 5 photographs you took before you were shot. And exactly as I expected, the photographs were police uniforms with badges and numbers, loading the guns, pointing at her, and that's the last photograph. And so rather than wait to put it in court in my lawsuit, I called up Brian Self on CNN and said, look, if you will publish these photographs on Sunday morning, I'll let you break the news. But he did. And as a result of that, I know that afternoon the Minneapolis PD had emails floating around to Discovery and Notice saying, check these photographs, make sure it wasn't your badges on them. And the next day, the PD retracted their denial of any involvement with the New York Times, which caused Frances Ronalds, the reporter, to hit the roof that PD had lied to her. So she made sure that that was on the New York Times website video that everyone saw. And that had a huge effect in accelerating the settlement that we got, which caused them to change their policing practices. So I think where I end on this is where we go in this world and in America is not just a function of Donald Trump and your points, it's a function of everyone in this room and what we do within the spheres of what we are able to do. This is naive, it's idealistic of me, but I have a hope that if every good person does what they can, we will all nudge collectively in the right direction and we'll be okay.